everyone, it's Angela Allen. Welcome back to the Handmade Homestead. Today I'm going to give you 5 important tips to be successful in starting your own seedlings indoors to be ready for them outdoors as soon as the weather's permitting. So let's go. It's coming on mid to late February here in Rhode Island. I am in zone 7A in the Northeast, the southern part of the state, right on the coast near Newport, Rhode Island. And we are well into starting seeds because it's really just a few weeks before I'll be able to start putting some seedlings out and putting stuff directly in the garden for direct sowing. Now for me, all I've started indoors are seeds that can safely go outside for cool weather except for peppers. Peppers are one of my favorite things to grow, and I do grow a lot of plants. Last year my peppers got 5 feet. I'm only 5'2", so 5 feet tall. And what happens here is by the time the peppers reach maturity enough to give me a lot of really good fruit, it never gets time to turn red if I don't put them in early. I end up with a lot of green fruit and not as much yield or as great a size in those pieces of fruit that I would want. So I do start peppers early. I've learned to get them going, get them up potted, keep them really healthy. So when they go out to the garden, I can start picking fruit maybe in early August instead of mid to late September. So I do have a lot of peppers started, but other than that, what I have here are a couple of kinds of cabbage. These are green onions. These are my sweet potato slips just getting started. These are celery because they take so long to get going. Eggplants. These haven't come up yet. I believe those are eggplant too. And then all of these are all peppers. And one of the tips I'm going to give you addresses the fact that there's more than one plant in each pot. These down here are leeks going. And I still have a number of other things to start. I haven't started broccoli yet, lettuces, Swiss chard, anything like that. Some of those things I'll direct sow too, but I do like to get some plants going to give me a head start. I just don't have a ton of room here, and these are things I wanted to get going super early because they go out super early. Tomatoes, stuff like that, I will start those later. So yeah, let's get into the 5 tips that I have for you to make it really successful to grow your seedlings inside. It also saves you a ton of money if you grow your own seedlings. So let's start with number 1. One is heat, lighting, and space for starting your seedlings. So make yourself some room. They grow quickly and you're going to need to pot them up most likely. So if you're starting seeds now, make sure that you have someplace that's warm enough for them to start. Check your seed packets. They will tell you what temps the seeds germinate at. And make sure you've got heat and plenty of light. You don't want a lot of grow light space between your plants and your grow light. If you've got too much space here, you're going to get long, leggy seedlings. So what I do is, these are all different distances apart, the lights to the containers. I usually start them here when they're really small. As they get taller, I move them up where the light is a little bit higher. That's why these are here. And then when they get even taller, they go down here. There's even more space. These are leeks, like I said, they've gotten tall pretty quickly. I'm okay with that. They get well fed and they get well watered on a regular basis. I do check them a lot to make sure they're close enough, but not too close. So light, heat, and enough space to start your seedlings, all things that you need. In my household, because this is in my dining room, kitchen area, once these start getting big enough, not the peppers and the celery and the eggplant, but the other things like the onions and the cabbage, once they get big enough and it's still getting warmer and warmer outside, we're just a couple of weeks till spring, these will go outside right there. If you go into this room behind me is my sun porch. It's actually glass on 3 sides. I use it as a greenhouse for myself, and they will go outside. I do have a covered warm area, almost like a greenhouse in a greenhouse out there to help grow them out, and then gradually that will come off. So right now it's probably in the 20s outside. It's probably almost 70 in my house, and it's 40 out there in the greenhouse. When the sun comes up a little bit more, that area will be in the 60s. So as these get too big for here, they get rotated outside. It provides me more room to start more seeds in here. So that's my plan. I do a rotation, but heat, light, and temperature, make sure you have all those things dialed in to get your seedlings to get off to a good start and to prevent problems with the dirt dampening off or lack of germination. Before I go to number 2, I'm going to slide in just a little bonus tip here. It doesn't really matter all that much what you start your seeds in as far as soil is concerned. You can use seed starting mix if you want. It doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it. I just usually start with potting soil, or I will start with any other kind of soil that I would put into my garden. I never really have any problems with my seeds starting. I just, use whatever I've got handy. You have permission to use whatever you've got handy too. All right, number 2. All right, so number 2, make sure you start the seeds that are appropriate for the time of year that you're starting them. So most seed packets will tell you how many days to maturity or how many days to start seeds before you put them out. They will give you an idea. They'll say 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks or something like that. So don't start your warm season crops too early. They will outgrow the pots and they won't do well. By the time you put them into the soil, they'll have used up a lot of their energy and they're just not going to produce well for you. It also gives them a lot more time to get diseases you don't want them to have, some of which are more prevalent in really cold, damp weather, which early spring is. So start them when they're supposed to be started, and you're going to multi-plant your seeds. I'm not sure if you can see right here very well, but this is celery. Let me know if I pick it up and I do this. Can you see how these pots have multiple plants in them? Celery notoriously gets going and half of them die off. I don't know why that is. I baby my plants, but sometimes that happens. I always plant more seeds than I need, and I multi-sow in containers. So if I were going to start these, say, in just one pot, I would plant all of those seeds in one pot. I wouldn't do 2 or 3. I would just dump a bunch in, and then I am going to call out the ones that are the healthiest, the strongest, the best looking to pot up. And eventually I hope to get down to, 6 or 8 or 10 celery plants from my garden. I don't need more than a dozen, that's for sure. I planted 15 once and I had so much celery, I didn't know what to do with it. 6 plants is usually enough for me to have plenty for fresh eating all through the summer, fall, and part of the winter because they last well in the fridge, and to dehydrate celery leaves and chunked up pieces of celery for soup to have all winter long too. So 6 plants is plenty for my small family. You may need more, but at any rate, plant your seeds, multiple seeds per pot if you can. If it's a seedling that isn't going to tolerate that, it's probably not a seedling you should start inside anyway. So plant multiple seeds, thin them out to the best plants, and then pot up. Always pot up a couple of extra. If you think that you need 6 eggplant plants, pot up 8 or 9 and know that you probably are going to lose a couple along the way. Better to have a few extra than run out and have to go buy them. Seedlings cost a lot of money. Even for a little 6-pack, you can pay $5 or $6 for 6 plants. A thing of seeds from a smaller seed packet company like M.I. Gardener or Pine Tree Garden Seeds, plenty of seeds for a small garden, but not an overabundance. You can get seed packets for like $2, and that would be 25 or 50 or however many plants for seeds. So it's definitely more economical to start from seed and always plant a little bit extra. Multi-sow in the same container. Give yourself wiggle room for losing some of those seeds. And if you have any extra plants, you can always give them away, or you can stick them somewhere else and see if you produce something. You can't produce food off of plants you haven't started. If you produce too much food, there's always someone to give it to. So that's number 2. Three, keep the soil moist but not wet. You don't want to drown the seeds or the seedlings. Make sure your soil is moist before you plant your seeds. Cover them with the expected amount. It's usually 1/4 inch of soil. The smaller the seed, the less it needs on top of it. If it's a seed that sprouts best in the dark, you can just cover it. Like up here, I have some sweet potatoes started. I just have a little rag cloth on top of them. These are just the potatoes, and that's where my sweet potato slips will come from. But they kind of do well if it's a little dark before the plants come up. So I just threw a little cloth under it because I do have lights here and I am near a really big window. I do have a big sliding glass door right behind this rack. So yeah, cover the ones that need to be covered, but don't cover all of them. Once your seeds are in the dirt, sprinkle a little bit on top. Water again with a mister. Now you can use a little fine mister. Pardon my back. I have a little mister. It's only used for water. You know, I kind of come by and spray them if they start to look a little bit dry. If I notice the dirt looks really dry, I do water them. But I'm not looking to drench them. I don't want them sitting in water underneath their thing here, and I don't want them super soggy. If you keep them too wet, you're going to have mold, and you're going to have dampening off where the plants just shrivel up and die. You're going to have, you know, fungus gnats or fruit flies in your dirt. It's just a whole host of I don't want to have in my house. And you'll lose all your seedlings, or you'll lose most of them. And then the ones that you don't lose might be weak and might not be productive. So again, moist but not too dry. And again, not too dry. If you don't check them a few times a day, the lights, the heat from your house, they are going to get too dry. Keep an eye on them. If the top soil gets dry, they're not going to sprout. So that's number 3. Number 4, remember that airflow does prevent mold. So having airflow helps for a couple of things. It doesn't just help prevent mold spores from growing and killing off your plants and increasing fungus growth in your dirt. It also helps strengthen your plants. It's okay to touch them. You have to be really gentle, but you can walk by a couple times a day, just give them a little light brush for your hand, very light. You can see it just helps strengthen the cell walls, so it helps strengthen the plant. The other thing you can do if you don't want to do that, or you have a ton of seedlings, is you can just put a little fan on them, even if it's just for a couple of hours a day, just to kind of mimic what they'd get from outside if the air was blowing on them. It's a good thing, and it will help prevent you from losing seedlings. So number 5 is don't pot up too early. You certainly don't want the plants to get root bound and not have enough nutrition. And these, like this one specifically, these are really tiny little cells. They're only a couple of, maybe 1.5 inches wide and 2 inches deep. They're not very big. However, you don't want to disturb these little plants until their true leaves come in. So this is the leaf, this set of leaves that from the seedling, right? I'm not going to pot those up till they get their next set of leaves, their true leaves. Cabbages tend to have a really cute big leaf, you know, and you kind of think, oh, it's a true leaf because it looks like a cabbage. That is not the true leaves. The true leaves are just coming in. They're right above my fingertip there in the center. That's the true leaves just starting to come in. So you don't pot them up until you get true leaves. If you do it before that, the fragile roots are probably just going to die and the plant will die. Give it a little bit of time, but at the same time, don't pot up too late either. If you wait a really long time, they're going to have not just drained all the nutrition from the soil, even if you're feeding them, those roots in there are already, so the roots for these cabbage plants are already this long. The little cabbage plant, an inch long, and the roots are probably this much longer. They're really long in there. So what'll happen is they'll start spiraling around and tangling up and bunching together, and the plant, if it survives, it's not going to do well. Even when you put it in the garden, it's not going to do as well. So when those first true leaves come in and the plant's looking sturdy and healthy, that's when you very gently pot up. Handle the plant by the leaf, not by the stem. You don't want to break it, and just be super, super gentle. Treat them like the babies they are, and you'll have a lot of really good success. One more just little kind of bonus, if you will. Keep planting seedlings. Even once your garden is in, you're going to want to keep planting new seedlings to replace the stuff in the garden as it's spent. So if you plant 20 lettuce plants, you know, you're going to go through that. If you're a big salad eater and you have a big family, you're going to go through that quickly. So every week or two, you should be planting at least another, you know, dozen plants or something. So depending on what your family needs, always keep successively starting seedlings so you have more to fill in the spaces in your garden as you go. You can plant things a little heavier early in the spring if they're things you're going to use quicker. So if I'm putting in tomato plants, say in late spring, super early summer, I'm going to plant a row of green beans in front of them and maybe a row of radishes behind them, because by the time those tomato plants need that space, the radishes will all have been harvested and the beans will be well on their way to being harvested and removed as well. In the meantime, they will keep the soil a little bit cooler, a little bit looser, and a little bit more active. So yeah, keep planting. There's always going to be a need for more plants in a garden, no matter what time of year it is. Even if it's going into fall, you can always put in some kale or some radishes too. So you can be more productive. Just keep making the seedlings to put out to fill in the spaces. That's just a few of the basic tips. There are tons and tons of other ones. I would encourage you to watch every video that you can get your eyes on. If you're new to gardening, if you're not, a little refresher doesn't hurt either. There's a lot of great videos, a lot of great information out there. I watch them all the time myself, and I've been gardening. Let's see, I just turned 62, so I've been gardening since I was in my early 20s when I bought my first homestead. It was a 14-acre homestead in Maine when I was 22. So I've been gardening at least that long, but my parents garden too. So gardening has always been a part of my life. I still am constantly reading, watching, viewing YouTube videos, constantly looking for additional tips and tricks and information. So I welcome your comments, your questions, your suggestions, anything you want to share, especially your experiences, so that my subscribers can glean from you. You are the best teacher when you tell others how your experiences have gone, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Take care.